Do you ever wonder what happened to your friends from high school? I mean, you were so close. You laughed together, you cried together, you shared some of the best years of your lives together. And yet, somehow through life, you just lost touch. Now it's time to relive those moments once again. Introducing the podcast that takes you back in time to the place where it all began. This is Class Reunion. We're bringing you all the gossip, secrets, and scandals from your high school days that you won't want to miss. Join us as we catch up with old classmates and dive into the wildest stories from our high school days. From those legendary parties to the infamous cliques, we're spilling all the tea on who's who and what really went down. So grab a seat, turn your volume up, and get ready for a trip down memory lane. Class Reunion, the podcast that reunites us all. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Class Reunion. I have with me somebody that you're going to have so much fun listening to, Joleene Desrosiers, and she is my new best friend. She's into genuine transformation, and we're going to talk all about that. But I just have to tell you that she's someone that you will say hello to on the phone, and there's just an immediate connection. So I can't wait to share her with you. She is just a really, really cool person, and you will walk away a different person. I will just guarantee you that. So welcome to Class Reunion.
Thank you so much. This is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to this. Ever since I was on the phone with you, chatting with you.
So, it is one of those things that you meet someone on TikTok, which, love it or hate it. It's for me a safe place of meeting cool people. And what drew me to you was there wasn't a conversation or a topic that you brought up where I was like, man, I see myself in that response. Man, she is saying what I'm feeling. And it's not just all one subject matter. It's corporate America. It's being a woman. It's understanding male energy. It's name a topic, girl. You cover it in such a genuine, authentic way that just, I think, resonates with a lot of people, men and women. Was that intentional, or did you just kind of fall under this, like by accident, of like knowing how to reach people on multi-level?
My partner would tell you the latter, knowing how to reach people on a multi-level. When I started on TikTok, I'm a screenwriter.
Yeah.
It was to generate a following so that when I went to festivals to market my products, they saw that I had a following. But I was living my life out loud and having these experiences and sharing them. I come from a world of television production. I've been a public speaker. So I think those two pieces together allowed me to present myself as I do on TikTok. And people just started following in droves, especially when I had this realization about the feminine energy and living in my wounded masculine.
Yes. So we are going to share her ebook. There's a lot of things that she has available in her link tree, in her bio, which I will share. But one of the things you will walk away with if you take a look at the YouTube notes is her link on understanding masculine and feminine energies. And I asked Jolene's permission to read a couple things, because when you start hearing how she speaks, you're going to get why I was so drawn to her, because again, I think so many of us can relate. And just backstory, and I've told this to Joleene, and I'm like a lot of people that may have been in my situation where, you've got this survival mode you're working in. And in my case, I was in corporate America because I was told that's what I was supposed to do. And I had a child to take care of, insurance and 401k. And it was like, who cares if you like it or if you're respected? You just have to do it. And you become this person you can no longer identify with. And it's a struggle. So when I started to read her offering of understanding the masculine and feminine identity, you're going to die. So she starts saying, for years I've been working on becoming the best version of myself. I existed in what was known as a wounded masculine state, which made me hard, angry, disruptive, defensive, and a control freak. I mean, insert Leanne Pepper. In a word, I hated myself. I destroyed relationships around me and existed in my ego. My marriage fell apart. I was mad at everybody, and I was pretty sure the world at large was out to disrespect me daily. And it goes on about how exhausted this made her feel, that, if she worked 70 hours a week thinking that pushing people, places, and things to adhere to her beliefs would make money hand over fist, which she did. But then she ended up losing a lot of the work that she had done. A website of hers disappeared. And all of a sudden, she knew that the universe had pulled her out from under that for a damn good reason. Because, as she says, Jolene, I was sick of my shit. And I got to tell you, when I read the whole rise and fall, where we're supposed to be, where we want to be, and just having the world tell you, I'm going to put you in a different direction, it resonated because here I am doing this podcast, and it was because corporate America had failed me. They had said, bye bye. We don't like you for whatever reason. You know, I can't relate to the younger bosses I had. I wasn't worthy. I was too expensive. I had a voice, right? I shared because I always wanted to, my mind is a problem solver. And you've talked about this many times. When you voice something that's of an improvement or where you see efficiencies can be made, it's really not what corporate America wants to hear, right? They want you to, when they say, are you coachable? They want you to play on the team. They don't want you to be the quarterback. They don't want you to be Tom Brady.
Yeah.
They want you to sit
Well
on the
said.
bench, right? And so when you wrote that statement of how you were so angry at the world and you thought everyone was out to get you, I can't tell you, I've lived in that for 50 some years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think empaths, especially when they find a sign that's like disrespect or your voice isn't valued, we go bonkers because you're at the core of hitting who we are. Am I in the ballpark? Or I just felt like everything that you wrote, and we're going to go dive deeper into it. But when people say, oh, that woman's a bitch or whatever it is, there is a cause to the reaction based off of history.
Yeah. When a woman like you and me, when
Yes.
we're in that state of anger and frustration and we want to tell people where to go and what to do, which I understand, that as you said, it has to do with what happened back here.
For sure.
And we're reacting because we feel like I always felt like I was not being respected with my thoughts and my voice and all of these things. When, even if that was the case, my reaction in that way was not serving me or them or the world at large. How we react to people is very telling. Also, how they react to us is very telling. What I have learned is my reactions being angry and controlling. Quite frankly, I was a bitch. I was unkind, had everything to do with me. And the only way I could get through to being the best version of myself was recognizing there was another way. And the way I was responding, being that wounded masculine, being so controlling, being narcissistic practically, all of those things was my way of trying to control a situation because I didn't know how else to do it.
Yeah.
What people don't understand about the masculine feminine is, one, it's an energy. It is not gender specific at all. Two,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
there's more power, and I don't mean abusive power, more power in a strong feminine presence versus that wounded masculine. So in other words, in my marriage, when I was trying to be controlling, being very unkind, that was my attempt to make things right and to voice myself for not being heard. I wanted nothing more than to be soft and loving and kind, and I didn't know how. And I remember saying that to him and him saying, I don't know, I think you want to be in control. And I was like, no, I don't. And a lot of people misunderstand these dynamics, thinking that someone who is in their feminine wants to be submissive and be controlled. Oh, no, not at all. Or someone who's in their masculine is controlling and makes the woman subservient. This isn't ancient times. This is not what we're talking about.
Right.
This is genuinely an energy that when people understand it but naturally, and I'm being coached through this professionally, right? So I can continue to deliver and disseminate this information when Ken and I are on our podcast. This is something that even you, as you sit there, you want to be in your soft feminine, which is allowing, which is accepting, which is paying attention to your intuition, and it's not forcing. That doesn't equate to laziness. And a man wants to be in his masculine where he leads. And this is where people are like, what are you talking about? Where he leads the relationship because naturally she wants to be. And naturally he wants to lead. I don't care what situation you put it in. We've talked to couples that are same-sex couples. And depending, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, depending on which energy is stronger,
Yes.
one needs to lead and one needs to be. And when you're coupled, and I started this journey before I was even coupled and I never knew Ken.
Right.
When you're coupled, it's natural. And if I start to be, a little too aggressive or wanting things my way, I've learned there's more power in just sitting back softly. Even in a room with male executives, there's more power just sitting back softly because they don't know they're going to shift. That's the thing, is they're going to shift unknowingly. Like, what is she doing? Like the old me would be like, no, that's not going to work that way. Or why would you do, just defensive and all of those things. And toward the end of the job I was in before, I would just sit and I would listen. And not the kind of listen that's like, okay. The kind of listen that's strong and powerful with one word answers. Because there was more power in my presence energetically than me forcing or pushing verbally.
My head is spinning. I am listening in my feminine state, but my mind is like, blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, she's so right. You are correct. And just even going back to the marriage piece, if I can, when you said trying to make things right, you didn't want to be strong. I think I'm married an alcoholic, so I had to control a lot of things, and it came across condescending and in control and bitchy, but I was in survival mode. I took that because I was, married for a while. I took that to work. I took that same behavior to work. Then when I was divorced, I'm heightened even more because now I'm on my own. And sitting and listening 100%, you go through those sales exercises like listen to your customer, but do we do that a lot in a conference room? No. And there was something interesting. There was a guy I was friends with. His name's Scott. I don't know if he'll be listening to this, but he's like 6'4". Okay. And we would be studying together, same material, same information from a sales side. And I said, gosh, you open your mouth and everyone listens. And he said, because I don't talk. And because I'm sitting there quiet as a 6'4" man or 6'3" man, people think I'm smart. You're trying so hard as this little person, right, to be a loud, big voice in the room because you're smart and you want everyone to know it. I don't have to say anything because I'm quiet, sitting there tall, and I'm dominant in the room. And I was like, how do I become that? And I never mastered it, by the way.
Well, I can tell you how. I can actually tell you how. You have to let go. And so, okay, what does that mean?
Don't talk dirty to me. Yeah.
I know. It's the worst in the world.
Yeah.
It's like they say, it's conditioning. It's getting yourself used to it. Let me give you an example. I watched The Love of My Life search for these earbuds. I lost because I run in these too. I lost the silicone piece on this one.
Oh, yeah.
I know exactly where to go and what to do to get that silicone piece. Mm-hmm. But he wanted to do it. And I let him. And I watched him go to the wrong websites. I watched him use the wrong keywords to search. I watched him go over the email, but all he had to do was email the company to find out what size they were. I watched him do all of that. And I allowed it because he will get to the same results that I would get to at a different point in time and in a different way. And how kind of any human to allow another to have that exploration. That's feminine energy, allowing. Instead of busting in and being like, you just went over the email. I mean, certainly you can interject softly, and I've done that too, to say, oh, what about the email? Maybe we can. But last night when he was doing that, I made a decision and a choice because he's not stupid. Nobody is. There's 9 ways to skin a cat. What we have to start doing, whether it's a male or female partner, business partner, whatever, is allow them. Allow them to go through a process. Allow them to make the mistake. The gift you're giving yourself, being so patient, patience is a masculine energy, but the softness is the feminine. These two energies often merge. And there's probably people listening going, but wait, just make it simple. I can't. Mm-hmm. You have to allow the masculine energy in me informs the feminine. Because look, I'm an athlete. That's a very masculine thing to do. When I'm out there and I'm running hills and I'm getting ready for a triathlon and I'm training, I'm working my body hard. It's out of its softness. So I have to make the decision when I come home to take very good care of this body and be gentle with it and soothe it, whether it's an Epsom salt bath or not. Because when someone chooses to be in their feminine energy, there's still a masculine energy within us, because again, both are within us all the time. The practice is learning how to release the negative masculine behaviors and the negative feminine behaviors. So when you were saying you had to be in control because your husband wasn't able to function to take care of those things, yet you were definitely in survival mode, and everything you were doing was in wounded because he wasn't stepping up in that masculine energy and he couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So you took control of that. That is fine until it's not, until it
Mm-hmm.
starts to affect your health and
Mm-hmm.
break you down. And now you're playing both roles. Why do you think so many women in this world are tired?
Mm-hmm.
And at the cost of making people angry, we're so afraid to let go, because if we do, someone else has to do it and they're not going to do it our way. But who says
Mm-hmm.
our way is always the right way?
One of the things, if you're listening and you're scrunching up in any way, if you're having any type of reaction, this is for you, because it's not criticism. It's, I think of when you were talking about, the Ken researching the earpiece, you are exuding masculine energy when a lot of women think the critical side to the husband, the spouse. Oh, don't do it this way. Or don't do that. Da, 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 da. It's actually masculine energy. So if you don't like the way they're doing it, you're doing it from a masculine point of view as well. You're telling them they're wrong. And that's
Wounded.
not, yes. And if you are someone that's just like hearing yourself get a little jar, we talk about swear jars, right? When we grew up or whatever, you put something in there every time you find yourself criticizing a behavior or a certain way because it's not your thought, process, procedure, way of doing things, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be poor by the end of the week. Because I think the longer your relationship, naturally, right? The longer you're in a relationship with somebody, that little stuff just goes unnoticed, but it is there as a foundation to your relationship. And if there's something that we can do here today to just have you think differently, then Joleene has succeeded, because we really need to take a step back and understand what we are putting out there from an energy standpoint for work, for friendships, for parenting, relationships. There's not a area in your life that won't be affected by understanding what you project with more passion and compassion, I should say. So I want to talk about, is it 4 quadrants of like how you, so there's the wounded, go through like that whole process of how you identify and label, I guess, this
Yeah,
masculine energy, because the wounded energy is different, all of that.
sure. So the ebook you speak of, what I'm
Yeah.
going to talk about, people can go to the ebook, and in
Yes.
the
I'm going
ebook
to
they
have
can
that available.
identify.
Hmm.
Cool. They'll be able to circle these energies and understand where they are. So here's
Yep.
what I mean is
I circled the whole
typically
page,
the
but yeah. Whoop.
whoops, gotta turn that around. So I'll start with, how do I know I'm in my wounded masculine? And I'll start with that because it's the most identifiable
Yes.
in a relationship when a woman is the wearing the pants, as it's said,
Mm-hmm.
is when you are reactive, when you are controlling, when you are angry, when you are, and there is a list, when you are goal oriented, but in a way that's not healthy, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's your wounded masculine.
Mm-hmm.
You are in the healed masculine when you are leading and powerful, but in a healthy way. So this isn't anything that's toxic where you're projecting pain on anybody. You're choosing to lead the charge. So being is a feminine energy. Doing is a masculine energy. So you're doing things for the greater good. That's a masculine energy. When you're running a business, even as a woman, you have to be in that healthy masculine energy to run that business and know when to pull back and when to not. And again, that's all learning a different dynamic. The
Mm-hmm.
wounded feminine is typically you're a people pleaser. You let people walk on you. You're a doormat. That's very recognizable. And again, you see this in men and women. This is why Ken and I started our podcast. He was the wounded feminine. I was the wounded masculine. In our past marriages, we both existed in those states. So I was the wounded masculine in my former marriage. He was the wounded feminine in his. He was whatever you want. No woman wants that, by the way. No woman, if they say, I want to go out to eat, where do you want to go? If a man were to say, you know what, I'm going to take you to an Italian restaurant, that woman will melt at your feet. But
Sure.
when he says, well, whatever you want, honey, he thinks he's doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wounded feminine energy. And again, if you go into the ebook, you'll see the list of them. The wounded, so the healed feminine, which is where my goal is to be every day as often as I should be, is I'm intuitive, I'm nurturing, I accept, I allow, I am in flow. When I ran my business before, I was in wounded masculine forcing. That's another wounded masculine trait. Forcing, forcing, forcing. Did shit get done? Yup. And I fall apart. As a healed feminine in the flow state, you're allowing, which is what we should be doing at large in the world anyway. Because when we try to force and we put all this worry on things, nothing gets done. We just make ourselves more sick.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in the state of allowing, things change. And this relationship I'm in with Ken, the way we allow, like the old version of me, watching someone make dinner and cut things, I'd be like, I'd lose my mind. You're doing it wrong. What are you doing? Why are you doing? Why are you folding the underwear like that?
Don't dice Julianne. Yeah.
Yes. And I let it. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with any of it.
Yeah.
But because I was so wounded, protecting myself and in survival mode, if it wasn't done on my timeline and in my way, I became angry, which pushed me deeper into my wounded and pushed my ex-husband deeper into his wounded feminine. And that man walked on eggshells, and that's no way to live. So we were unknowingly in this dance, which is an unpolarized relationship. We thought we had it. He thought by saying, whatever you want, honey, that he'd make me happy. And I didn't understand it then. So I'd be like, why do you stop saying that? I became repulsed. It's a strong word, but it's true. So before I met Ken, I was practicing this feminine. He was watching me on TikTok, practicing the masculine. Then we discovered we lived an hour apart. He asked me on a date in a masculine way, and we just started this dance to become polarized, to not live in these wounded states because we did that in our past lives. Our relationship suffered. What would happen if we tried it this way? And certainly we reverted back. It's not perfect. It never will be. But the respect and love we have for each other is unlike anything we've experienced. Unlike anything.
So that's part two to my fascination and admiration of Jolene. So not only is she raw and vulnerable about how she's being coached and helping to coach who we've become and how we want to change, she is walking the talk. And so you do have a podcast, Conversations in Bed, correct? So, okay.
Yeah.
And you know how you admire people's relationships. It's not because you think it's perfect necessarily. I'm in round 2 of trying to understand how to have a relationship. And when I see the both of you, so I encourage you to go to the podcast as well, which I'll link. There is a genuine reformulating of what you want to make this relationship, the Ken and Jolene relationship. And how does that happen?
It's mutual respect and it, because a lot of people will say, God, you got lucky. And we've had conversations about that going, did we? Because we could have met at any time, but if we were in a different state, we wouldn't have the relationship we have now. So that's why we are so passionate about teaching people the importance of accountability. And look, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I will flat out tell him, I reacted poorly. I should have never reacted that way. And he will take my hand and smile at me and say, it's okay, baby. And vice versa. There's no anger. There's no We don't push each other's buttons. I never existed this way. To me, a relationship was about pushing buttons.
Yeah.
To me, the relationship was about, this has to be my way.
Yeah.
And now that we're in this space, we cannot unsee the wounded. We'll be walking in a grocery store and he'll be like, oh my God, she's so wounded. Because we know
Yeah.
exactly why she's responding, and vice versa, why he's responding the way he does. And it's not a criticism. I want to be clear. We're studying it
Yes.
so much
Yes.
that, I mean, we see it in his parents. We see it in our friends. We see it, and
Yes.
not just the negative, the good. We'll be like, oh my God, I love the way she did that. I love the way he did that.
I would tell people all the time, I can cut you with my words. It's a terrible thing to say, but
Yeah, you owned it. It made you strong.
I knew that about me. People are like, oh, you're so sarcastic. I don't know if I consider that sarcasm. It's like a Ginsu knife, you know, but you don't want to be that way. And so when you start to hear other people speaking your language and you know that's something you would have said, you're like, ugh, that they said that was terrible the way he spoke to her, or that was terrible the way she spoke to him. But the fact is I have done that. And so until you soften enough to say, I give up, things won't change. And I think the beauty in you and Ken, and by the way, Ken has offered to have a separate podcast with me from the male perspective, because I think that's an important voice for all of us. And I think, honest to God, I have not mastered the art of dating, because God bless the man who has to work with me. And
but he doesn't have to work with you.
No, but I think knowing that I'm a work in progress, right? Like, I've got my bio. I can tell you all the stuff. I love sports. I'm from Michigan originally. I can do all that stuff, right? But I am a work in progress, and sure. I want a man that's a work in progress. And I don't know that we put that out as the front part of our bio. I think we're so about the buzzwords that are appealing, and
it's hard on dating apps. That's a whole nother, for me, I did it too.
But also men, right? Like I think when they learn from Ken, when he's on, to know that it's okay to do the homework on that side.
Yes.
To not only understand themselves, but the women out, like we are so quick to say, yeah, dating apps, it sucks out there, because we're really not being our authentic self.
No.
And when you put it out on the table, you have to sit there and hope people don't leave.
But it's just, and here's what I would say, and I love that you're bringing this up. You could change someone's disposition by not saying a word and just being soft. Like, we're so conditioned on these blind dates, because I literally had a blind date with Ken. I mean, he was watching me through TikTok.
I was going to say, I thought but you didn't know him.
Yeah,
okay.
But I didn't know him at all. We didn't know each other. We had friends in common. He followed me. We found out we lived an hour apart.
I know, that's wild.
It's totally wild. Mm-hmm. But it was, he chose to step up because he was starting to understand the masculine and lead that date. And that was everything. I mean, he pulled a fleece out of the saddlebag of his motorcycle because he wanted to make sure I was warm. That was everything. That little tiny action was everything. But we're so conditioned to sit across from somebody and say, here's what I make, here's what I have, here. Who gives a shit?
Right.
It's energy. And the energy I exuded, was confidence. So there's still a lot of my masculine that comes forward, but it was just receiving him and just listening to him and being playful with him. That first date went off without a hitch. And he had no idea. He'll tell you, he had no idea what to do, but he did everything right. He didn't even know how to say goodbye. That was the biggest joke. He just kind of let me walk away. But I, and a wounded me would have been like, yeah, you suck at that? Oh my God, you don't know how. But I knew energetically that every intention was good. And that's the thing, as I want to put out, is we're so trying to push it through our mouths and let everyone know who we are instead of showing them who we are, just by natural actions. And that's all the difference in the world. And, there was one woman I was talking to on the phone, because I coach people through this.
I was just going to say, she gives a great hour coaching and, puts you on a roadmap, and yes.
And so this woman I was talking to, she said, well, I went on a date with this man and he said, what bottle of wine do you want? And I told him to order it. And he said, well, I really want to make sure you have what you want. And I told him to order it, just order it. And I said, so you were basically in your wounded masculine controlling him.
Yeah.
She was like, well, you said that. Of course I said that. But the difference is you could either say, order that wine, or you could say, I would love for you to choose. I can't wait to see what you choose. Boom,
Okay.
boom, boom. He's going to shift.
That second part of what you just said, I can't wait to see what you've chosen. God, I don't know that we flirt anymore. I don't know that we soften those, because one of the things Jolene says is, on her little bio is like, I soften the edges. We have such a hard time as women just rephrasing in a gentler way. I don't know why. Words are everything. And so just to say that statement, there are men out on social media all the time saying, when a woman compliments me, I melt. Like their list of things they want from us is really simple. Our list is really long. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And also, as I ramble on in my head, because I told you I'm like, everything is, this isn't just for people looking for a second chance. This is a self-correction across the board. You can change the way you speak to your spouse or your partner. You can change your behavior in the workplace. Like this is tools from this ebook that just allow you to become a better version of yourself. And it's not about redating. I mean, yes, Ken and you have a great relationship, but marriage counselors should be looking into this.
Absolutely.
Right? They shouldn't
100%.
just be saying, when you had that argument, now what did you say? Then you're spending a half an hour, 50 minutes, because they cut you off, to do a problem resolution about ordering the wine, which you just summarized beautifully in 5 seconds and just said, hey, could you have said, I would love to know what you're going to order. Is that a problem? No.
Two things.
Yes.
The woman should have a long list. The man should know, and it's not a list of a check. We're not checking off. Women need more, and a man in his masculine will recognize and respect that. They will respect that we're emotional beings. They will respect that we do need boundaries and parameters and deadlines. So at least I just want to make it clear to people that a good man who understands masculine energy understands that a woman does need more to be held, to be cherished, to be loved. And those things that she asks for doesn't make her needy. By nature, she does need those things. That's who we are as creatures, where men are more simplistic. Both should definitely be vulnerable. You know, a man being in his masculine doesn't mean he never sheds a tear or he's never sad. And that's the problem, is men think they have to have the stature to not show up as soft and vulnerable. The way I've become closer to Ken is when he shares his vulnerability. I hope so. He's human, you know? And there was a second thing you said, marriage counseling. It should never be paired. I did it too. When you sit a couple down, because our trauma and our wounding is our own, and we're reacting, parts of us, not us, not ourselves, parts of us are responding to that. And traditionally, we sit down together and we tell them, say what's wrong, and then you say what's wrong, and then we clash, and then we're told to go out on a date to make it better. Yes. Good marriage counseling happens in separate rooms because you have to heal and he has to heal. Mm-hmm. You can bring them together at some point to talk about that, but if there's one, because I went through 3 of them, 3 marriage counselors during my marriage, and nothing, it didn't work. And now I'm learning to understand it's because we're trying to heal a joint trauma, but you can't do that until you identify these pieces here. And that trauma is why we respond in our wounded states. I was abused as a kid, horrifically. When I identified that and understood that's why I was controlling, why I resisted this and put up walls and had to build everything and do everything myself. When I understood that, I was able to soften and then make amends with the person who hurt me. It doesn't mean I accepted it, to be clear. And make amends and be forgiving to myself that little person did the best she could when she could. Those are really important healing pieces that a lot of times don't come into marriage counseling because all we're talking about is the why in that moment. We
Right.
can't identify that until we understand where it came from.
Right.
That's the biggest piece I've learned in this journey is Ken has wounds. He has triggers. Me too. So if when there's financial conversations, we prepare ourselves before and we meditate together. What? I never did anything like that. Like, never. But that brings us on a level. And if we have to have an important conversation, because we're starting to build something together here with
Yeah.
our voices. So
Yeah.
there's financial pieces that are important. When we have those conversations, when we talk about language, I'll say, I'm feeling uncomfortable. Not you're making me uncomfortable. I'm feeling
Mm.
uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
with this piece. Can we talk about a solution that puts us both in a safe space? He says, absolutely. Because if I don't feel safe, there's not a good relationship. So we talk. And if he's proposing something that makes me uncomfortable, I don't say, no, that's stupid. I say, I'm still not fully comfortable with that. Can I propose something different? Absolutely.
Now, how long did it take you, though, to exercise this new language
Mm-hmm.
skill?
Great question.
Because, right, it all sounds beautiful, and then I'm going to hang up with you, and then I'm going to go to the door, and I'm going to go right back to my ways.
Yeah. First of all, make the choice
Yeah.
today. Just for today.
Okay.
I'm sober 8.5 years. Every day I wake up, I have to make the choice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I make the choice not to drink every day. I don't think about it anymore. Some days I do,
Yes.
but make the choice. Today I refuse to react. You can be as pissed as you want in here. Be as pissed as you want. Just
I
don't
like that.
react. Just make the choice. Because then you can decide later because rage will overtake you.
Yeah.
You can decide later and give yourself props for being so kind. The second piece, as far as the language, and I want to put something else together, that's still in progress.
Mm-hmm.
Because I will say to him, are you comfortable if I say, may I suggest, versus that doesn't resonate with me? When I say to him, that doesn't resonate with me, that's negative to him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're scrap that then. How about, can I make a suggestion? So we're choosing the language. And when we have to sit down to have an important talk, that happened fairly early on, but now that we're more comfortable with each other and we're growing together, I will say to him, what's the best way for me to present this to you? And he'll flat out tell me, I like it when you say suggest, or that's no matter. He's not offended. We're also in this space. I mean, I'm 52, he's 60. We've made every mistake. Well, there's more to make. We've made so many mistakes. We know we don't want to feel icky again. We don't
Right.
want to fight. We've never fought.
No. Mm-hmm.
We've disagreed.
Sure.
And there's been some tense moments, but we've never fought. We've never walked away angry. It
Mm-hmm.
will not happen. And I know people say, well, that's not healthy. Understand, you don't need to kick and scream and tear each other apart
Yeah.
to have a disagreement.
Yeah.
You can have a disagreement and come to the table. We've taken breaks. Like, we had a big conversation around this financial piece. And we noticed we started to go in circles. And we both decided, let's take a break. And we went in here in this kitchen and we made a charcuterie and forgot about this for a minute and lived again. We weren't affected. We didn't bring the anger in the kitchen with us.
Mm.
And then an hour and a half later, are you ready? Yep. And we were fresh again. And we sat down and we finished it. Never in my life would that have happened. But that's because I made a choice. When I say I made a choice, I know it's going to suck sometimes. It's going to be uncomfortable. And you're so used to rage and being angry and being right that you're going to want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But make the choice daily, because then eventually it just gets to a point where I feel I am now, where I don't care. I don't care when he does it or how he does it. It gets done.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets done because there's mutual respect. And then
Mm-hmm.
people will say, well, how do I get to mutual respect with my current spouse? You will never force him into this. You have to make the choice to change. And here's what's going to happen when you do, when you learn to soften. And we can get into this another time.
Yeah.
When you
I
choose to
definitely
let
want
people
part 5, part 6, part 7.
yeah. You let people open doors for you. That's a one-on-one practice. Because I did not start this with Ken in my life.
Uh-huh.
I started this feminine journey solo. When you learn to soften, you'll realize all the things you thought were so important just aren't. They're just not.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. It'll get done. And when you want to be that feminine and no longer be in control, and I'm coaching someone and I say, then just let go. It's the hardest thing to do at first, but it gets easier. And if they don't comply, people say, well, how do I get them? You don't. You are now at a space in your story where you have to make a decision if you're going to carry on, whether it's a friendship, a romantic relationship, or a familial relationship. Are you going to carry on? You will always come to that conclusion, but in the end, you will still become a better person with or without them. And please hear me. I'm not advocating for anyone to split up. I'm just saying people probably already know if it's over.
Right.
And only you, when you make that shift, either they jump on board energetically or they don't. You make changes in your life all the time. This is no different.
Jolene, people like to sit in discomfort. And so to say, I'm so tired of being tired, or I'm so tired of this. Are you? Because you haven't fallen far enough to make the change. You really don't want to correct it. It's just comfortable to stay here. It requires homework and vulnerability. And when you say let go, it makes me have a little bit of hives. And that's good because it means I'm ready to do that. If we'd had this conversation, like you said, 5 years ago when I was still in corporate America and I was on the plane before 2020 and I was traveling every week and I thought it was, cat's meow, I wasn't happy with myself. And so now that I'm in this place where I've had a lot fall, I have to rebuild and rebrand. And to sit there and say, I'm willing to let go is why this is resonating with me. If you are not walking away from this inspired to just change your language, then keep on keeping on. But if you want to soften the edges, that's all this is. Male, female, it doesn't matter. That's what this is about, is just opening up a life that you have never known before. You've just not been privy to how simplistic and beautiful life can be when you decide to let go.
Less is more.
Oh, I need to speak with you every week. I mean, I just, we do these things. We go to Weight Watchers every week, or we do everything. We do all this other stuff for ourselves. We're spinning until we work on our emotion. And I think we should put as much time and effort into that as we do everything else. Right. I adore you. Can't wait to have Ken on. I could go on all day, but I thank you for your friendship, for your knowledge, for your continuing education. I think the whole language skill thing, rock with it, because yes, we know what's going on, but I just to have some ideas, an idea board of how to say things differently, I think we all could use. Work, family, relationships, right?
Game changer at work. Game changer.
I just think you're really onto something that needs to be redefined in a more simplistic way, and look at the results when you do it. I just think it's going to be tenfold in your heart and your spirit. Right. So I can't wait to see all the things you're going to come up with next. You've been a fabulous friend. Thank you so much. Can't wait to put her ebook out there. Go to the podcast with her and Ken. See the possibility of people that work in conjunction with each other, not against each other.
Yes.
Right. And let's start making the second half of this journey count.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I look forward to having the rest of you on for next week's class reunion, but I hope today really inspired you. I'm exhausted. I'm going to go take a shower and try to change my words. Thank you so much. All right, friends. That's it for this episode of Class Reunion Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show, write us a review, and share this podcast with a friend. Until next time.